With 8-foot trains, punishing grades and really tight curves, how do we get round problems like this? Welcome to McKinley. We've kind of created this problem by having long trains and a punishing railway, and we fixed this problem of getting engines to be able to pull the trains we need with a bit of ingenuity. The background on this railway is our trains are 8 foot long. That's about 24 of the sort of standard old BR wagons plus a brake van, and we expect the majority of our engines to be able to pull those trains around this railway. In fact, they have to do it comfortably, not with a struggle, not slipping. The diesels on the whole are pretty good. Once we got past the sort of single bogie drives diesels with the advent of Bachmann and then some of the Hornby models, that problem doesn't exist. We don't have to add weight to our locomotives. The reason that we wanted to add weight to our trains is that we found that different manufacturers had different weights in each of their wagons. And if you're pulling a train around a tight curve, there was the opportunity for the wagons to pop off in the middle of your train, which is very frustrating. And so we looked at the different specifications that other more established groups like the NMRA in America had devised. We started off with their weighting system, which in American terms is 1 ounce per wagon plus ½ an ounce per inch in HO scale, which is this really. And it was just way too heavy. We could never get anything working. And so we trimmed it down, and we've got to a weighting framework which is roughly about half of that, or 60% of that American thing. And then we don't have weight per wagon either because they're so small. So we have a uniform load across all of our wagons in trains. And basically for these wagons, they're about 45 grams for each of these wagons going along. The longer wheelbase ones like the HA hoppers and the newer cement and chemical wagons that have got a longer wheelbase, we put them at about 65 grams. So that gives us stable trains. Most of our locomotives work with them, but a lot don't. We have to make exceptions for rather niche engines, like for example the Midland compounds, which are 440s. They're never going to pull particularly anything strongly up these kind of grades. They just don't have the number of wheels. With anything that's an 060 or something 60, we expect to be able to pull these trains up these hills. So this is a standard Hornby Black 5, just bought straight off the shelf and out of the box today, just to show you what's happening. It's got our standard train on, and no matter what I do, you can see that for 24 wagons, she's beginning to slip and slide, and she gets nowhere fast. She's making a valiant effort, and there we are, we're stalled. So if I were to pull it forward a second and give you some idea of what she might be capable of, and we were to break the train at, say, after 3, 6, 9 wagons, we can see that she pulls away quite comfortably. If we help her along a bit further, and we take to 15 wagons, she seems to be coping with that nicely as well. We help her up the hill a bit further, and we go to 18 wagons. She's coping with that nicely, so we haven't got a huge problem. If we go to 21 wagons, she's just about coping with that. In fact, no, that's not 21, that's 18. Here's 21 wagons. And you can see that she isn't, and it's interesting how you can see those wagons just roll back, so they don't have any great rolling resistance, it's just the weight. So we've got to increase the weight so that this train can be pulled comfortably by that Black 5. So let's have a look at one of the McKinley ones that we've modified. Let's see what she does going up the same incline. We've modified the leading wagon. It's the same weight though, but it doesn't have the adapter couplings for the Hornby because we only use KDs. Here we go. I have to say this is a punishing grade. This is much stiffer than anything else we have on McKinley, so it's a real challenge for them. But you can see she's pulled through there gracefully, not one moment of slipping. Just the job. So here we have a Hornby Atef, just straight out the box. We haven't got a DCC chip in there, so we're using analog stretching, and just going to bring her through now. So follow her through as she starts to come through. You're hearing all sorts of noises. I would expect her to make it because she has got 8 wheels, but she'll probably struggle and slip and slide to achieve it. You can see that now. I'm putting full whack. And she will probably just maybe get through it slowly but surely, but you can see I've got her on 99, and if I slowed it down any, she would probably just slide. So she's making a graceful attempt at getting up this brutal curve, and you can see suddenly she gets a bit of traction and she starts to pull away again. So here's the modified Atef, and I'm going to leave sound on because it just adds something, doesn't it, eh? She's so sure-footed up there. It's a real delight to see when you get it right. So let's go downstairs and have a look inside the locomotives. And here we are down in the workshop. And here are the 4 trusty engines we were experimenting with earlier. I'm going to go through the black 5s and then the Atefs. Here is the weighted black 5. And if I put her on my trusty John Lewis kitchen scales, she comes in at 421 grams, so say 420 grams. If I put the out of the box black 5 on here, she's 337 grams, so say something like 340 grams. What we then need to do, and I'm wearing gloves here because this is lead, we're using lead, and we'll cover the detail of that in a minute, is you've got to add something like that amount of lead into this model in order to get it to the other weight. And that gives us the increased performance. And we're going to show you that in a minute, but there's a reasonable quantity of lead. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves because it's not a very good substance. And that's quite important to do. Let's now go over to the Atefs. So here is the weighed Atef, and she comes in at a staggering 495 grams. And if we put the out of the box Atef, she comes in at 375 grams or thereabouts. So that's going to require even more lead. You have to put this on, plus all this, and that gets you just about to the right space in terms of lead. So there's a knack to getting this in, and this was done with trial and error. And what we're going to do next is take these locomotives apart and show you what we did with them. What I can tell you is that the weights of the tenders haven't changed. So the bulk of this load, this additional weight, has been gone into the locomotive. And one of the really important things you've got to think about is if you do go down this pathway, you can't just put it all in the front. So for example, on a 280 locomotive, you've got a reasonable amount of boiler length to put stuff in. But as soon as you get to a 460, Any weight you put down the front here has got to be balanced by more than double that amount of weight at this end. What you don't want to do is have the engine's balance being tipped so that you're lifting the drivers off of the track. The important thing is that the wheels that drive these models sit firmly on the track and the weight is pushing them down and not acting as a cantilever. So that's quite tricky as well. So I'm going to get Pete to come and take these apart.
Here are the 8Fs, and here are the body shells that I've taken off of the Loco and the tender. And the first thing you do is you move the decoder socket from here into the tender here, and then as you can see, as we've done here. By moving the decoder socket, it's now left some space, which I've now put some lead here, as you can see. We've got the body top off and the lead is being added to the front, filling up the whole of that front section of the boiler. And we've also put lead just in where the back end where the firebox is. And then we've also put lead at the bottom where the driver will stand. And then also we put lead in the top of the cab. Basically you try to put as much lead into it as possible. If there's a hole anywhere that you can put lead, you fill it up. Turning to the Black 5, as you can see, it already comes with a speaker and the decoder. Our modifications consist of basically putting lead in the front and the back, and also in the cab and the roof, as the same as what we did on the 8F. Also, we found that the tender was rather light, so we put lead on both sides, as you can see here. These modifications were quite straightforward.
So that's our journey we take the steam engines through on McKinley. It's a case of trial and error with these locomotives. You often have to add weight. We try it with that set of wagons that we showed you earlier, and we then have to come back and scratch our heads. The other thing we also have as a golden rule is that we have no traction tyres or plastic wheels on the railway. Everything is metal. So that adds to our problems to some extent, especially with some of the more lightweight locomotives, such as the 440s. There's a process involved in replacing the wheels there, which I won't bore you with today. But once we've found a locomotive that we can get up, we can add the weight, it pulls well, then we tend to stick with those. So I imagine we're probably going to be overstocked with Black 5s, 8Fs and 9Fs on British railways, or McKinley railways rather. But luckily enough, all those three classes were in great abundance on the real thing, so we can get away with it. Thanks for watching.